and just turn it into a sort of an industrial blight spot again. It is beyond me. And yet, one thing that really stands out with me is that in the year 1800, a man of war, a British man of war, founded on the cliffs at New Haven, and local residents tried very hard to save the 105 people on board. They only saved one, and they were so appalled listening to the screams of people as they died in the storm that they decided they should have a lifeboat. And they were something like 20 years ahead of the rest of the country in developing a lifeboat system. And that lifeboat went on to distinguish itself in many ways, and not least of which is it was one of the little ships that went to Dunkirk to help the British Army retreat and hopefully recover for another day facing the Nazis. And it got grounded. But it got off the beach again at high tide, and it brought back some considerable number of people, along with the two ferries owned by Southern Railway, which also went chugging over. One didn't make it, one got blown to smithereens eventually, but the other brought back quite a number of people. And while there was a great deal of activity all along the coast, the unsung heroics of the of the New Haven lifeboat were a wonder. They really did work wonders. So the New Haven lifeboat that goes out from that town to help foundering ships, drowning people, and so on, has a wonderful, glorious history. And yet the town itself somehow never seems to get the right attention from the government based in Lewes. I feel very sorry, because I think that looking at some of the old photographs and reading the pride that people had in the town, and when you consider that they are also very heroic, in as much as in 2 world wars they looked after people before they embarked for France, it really is a truly remarkable record. So Claire and John and that remarkable family of yours, he's Indian old Clive, who between he and I always get into trouble whenever there's cakes at a party. I've told you that story before, and I won't tell you it again today, but perhaps I will tell you it again in a little while, because it's one of those things that it's funny. And when Claire heard me talking about her father and I scoffing a cake and then having to cover up our deed, our dirty deed, and she said, "Well, you know, Dad has quite a few track record with experiences of cakes, so I think I've got a few more stories down there." Anyway, Dandelion Charm, a great duo, huge success in Hove last week, huge success. The reaction on the internet from people that were there, and generally speaking, the whole ambience of what went on was apparently a fantastic night. So well done. And that was done for charity, by the way, for charity. So let's move on now from the good to the bad and the ugly. If you live in our area, beware, because the trains are not going to go where you would hope that they would go. If you want to get to London this coming week, you have to be prepared for quite a lengthy diversion. The trains, they say, are going via Littlehampton. Well, that means they're going onto the Littlehampton line, and they can then go up to Gatwick without interference from the work that is going on the main Brighton London main line. I'm not sure, but I mean that's going to add an hour to any journey, surely more than that. Or whether it's just joining the line rather than going to Littlehampton itself. I don't know. It's something that I haven't had explained to me yet. But anyway, disruption. So beware. Better that you actually try to work from home if you normally work in London. And if you can't do that, well, during the various strikes that we had a couple of years ago, because I had to work in London, I found 3 or 4 very nice small hotels. I mean, I think I paid 30 quid for the night. The sheets were clean. The hotel was very decent, and all in all, I couldn't fault them. So there is that option as well. The only thing is, of course, is if you stay up in London, then you're very tempted to get out into the pubs and the nightlife of London, and you feel like hell the next morning when you go into the office. So there we are. It's one of those things that is a bit difficult to tell, and I guess that the real impact of it will come when people come back, having tried to get to London or having got to London on Monday and found out exactly just what the situation is and what the downside is to travel. So we'll try and bring that to you on Monday. Just while we're talking about transport, of course, it's driverless cars are in the news. Soon we'll have driverless cars, they say. Chris Grayling, the Transport Minister, sort of looks a bit dizzy when people talk to driverless cars, because he's got a driverless department, I'm afraid. It doesn't do much of anything. And even his best supporters are saying that he should be moved on, and probably likely will be in the next cabinet shuffle. In Brexit terms, what's happening at the moment may trigger an election. I don't know. It could easily do. I'm not saying that for sure. But when we're talking about elections, is if you want to state your dissatisfaction or otherwise for Lewis District Council, there is an election coming in May the 2nd. May the 2nd? Yes, May the 2nd. When we get a chance to vote for possibly a new council. Now, I was watching the rugby in one of our local pubs around Christmas time, I guess, and I sat with some charming and delightful people who were from Seaford, and we just chatted about the rugby. But just when they said goodbye, they said, "Oh, by the way, we listened to you, and you've really stirred us to realise that things can be done, and we're thinking of putting our hat in the ring and running for council." Well, that's the sort of fresh blood that we need. I'm not against the present council. Most of them are quite nice people, but that's the problem. They're quite nice people. They feel that they can get onto a council and do good. What we need are councillors who will put the boot into the executive and not be led around by the nose and just finding that the executive can do whatever it wants without too much interference and without too many questions being asked. One councillor told me that she goes down to City Hall, the County Hall, to East Sussex County Council, and she has to sneak in through a back door, because if the word goes up from reception that she's in the building, everybody hides all their papers and makes excuses as to why their office isn't available to her. Even though as a councillor she should be able to march in and look at anything. But they hide everything because they don't want any scrutiny to be made, anybody examining what it is that they're up to. Well, I'm sorry, you're public. You're a public body. You're supposed to let us know what's going on. I mean, it just shows just the farcical nature of the generation that is in charge when they meet in committee and say that they don't want television cameras in any of the governance chambers because it might lead to misunderstanding. Well, I know I've heard it all. I really have heard it all. When you actually come to arguments like that, is I wonder what they're thinking of. Oh dear. Yeah, I'm sorry, but the situation, both nationally and locally, is so bad that if we can't do something about it in May, or we don't do something about it in May, the word on the street is, and came from Boris Johnson and others who know what's going on in the inner sanctums, is that a new system is ready to be put into place because this system doesn't work. Well, I agree that this system doesn't work, but I'll be very interested to see what system is going to replace it. Because if we keep on chopping and changing, we'll get the same chaos that we've got between Eastbourne and Lewis, and we'll get the same people. Because where chaos reigns, the people who are driving it are always the people that rise to the top and able to benefit from it. Now, I think it's time that we actually had a little music, because I'm ranting, aren't I? What shall we do with a drunken sailor? What shall we do with a drunken sailor? No. Let's see. Oh, there are a number of once again, I put up a number of pieces of music this morning, and they're not there. There's something wrong with the system, and I have to get on to the people at Spreaker and say, what is going on? But let's, for the moment, kiss the sky. Oh, that was a pretty little number, wasn't it? Well, we're almost out of time. We've been going for 28 minutes. Time to say goodbye. Just a couple of things for you to think about in the over the weekend. Students are threatening to go on strike for environmental reasons, and the headmasters and teachers in many places are beginning to support them. Well, can I say, don't do it, kids, because once you do it for this, you'll do it for a lot of other things, and that means that there are as many activists among kids as there are in real life. And if we keep on getting strikes, what will happen is we'll get into a situation where education is disrupted, and we'll get a generation that is worse than the present one, knowing what it's all about and being able to handle governance for the rest of us. Remember that one of the things that we want to talk about as we get close to the election is, if as a community group you feel that you want to run a department in the council, and you're qualified as a group, and you think you've got the time to do it, you can actually apply to take it over. I think a couple of things might be very useful there to. In fact, I might just go in and ask.